I've disassembled the sprocket output shaft and the flange nut, and I found that the problem with the Vboxx was that the flange nut was bottoming out on the end surface of the hexagonal shaft before the flange nut surface had a chance to push against the surface of the sprocket attachment piece, and as a result I was always left with radial movement and a small amount of axial play. I'll just demonstrate that and then show you how that can be corrected. So, just starting to turn it in. That's the axial movement that you want to completely eliminate, but as the flange nut is screwed in, it now has bottomed out against the top surface of the hexagonal shaft, and even in that position, tight, and no matter how tight you make it, it won't make any difference now, there's always a little bit of axial movement, and that axial movement results in a lot of angular movement. It's magnified. So how do we get rid of that? Well, the way that I found we can get rid of it is we need to actually space this out, that is the sprocket output shaft, out a bit further so that we're going to push against, with the flange nut, this interior surface. The way that appears to be easily accomplished is with a small spacer. That's a spacer 1 inch in outside diameter, 7/8 of an inch inside diameter. I made this one out of plastic, so it's not functional, and it's about 10/1000ths of an inch thick. It could either be placed over the shaft and pushed against the interior seating surface, or if I put it against the interior of the sprocket attachment piece, put the sprocket attachment piece on, and then come in with the flange nut. Now the flange nut, being screwed in, still has the axial movement, but as I bring the flange nut in and just lightly snug it up, I've pushed against the spacer, not against the end of the hexagonal shaft. I've eliminated the axial movement. It's gone. When the axial movement is gone, there is no more angular movement. So what was missing is some type of a spacer that is needed in order to bring the sprocket output shaft further out so that the flange nut does the job of actually pushing against the interior surface of the sprocket attachment piece. And of course a little spacer will work just fine for that. Not plastic, of course. So that's the problem, and that presents how it can be fixed for me.